listening to the Crosscheck NHL Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Crosscheck NHL Show. Thanks for making the Crosscheck NHL Show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. We're free and available on all platforms, now including YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. My name is Mary Clarke, staff writer for The Win, and you can follow me on Twitter at Mary C. Clarke. I'm here with Andrew Berkshire, NHL analyst for the Montreal Gazette and host of Game Over Montreal on the SDPN. You can follow on Twitter at Andrew Berkshire. On this Monday edition of the Crosscheck, the Maple Leafs have once again bowed out in Game 7 of the first round. We'll discuss their series against the Lightning and where Toronto goes from here, alongside previewing both the Western and Eastern Conference second round series for you. So, Andrew, before we start off today's show, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I had a great weekend. Fun time with the kids. We had a pool party at a friend's house, and then yesterday our next door neighbors got a trampoline and they allowed the kids to jump on it a bit, so that was fun too. It was a good weekend. I am just completely exhausted after staying up and watching that Flames Stars game last night. I had to help out with the stream afterwards, and then every time I started falling asleep after, my air conditioner in my bedroom would click on, and it was like that state of sleep where you're just about to fall asleep, and it just, every time it sounded like somebody opening a door in my head, so I just was jarred completely awake, like who's in the house? Because we had a break-in in our car last week, so we were like slightly on edge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
it was just
to
like,
hear about.
yeah, I mean, it not a big deal. They didn't get anything. It just threw garbage all over. But yeah, it's just like you're slightly more on edge just for sounds at night. And I was up till probably 3:30 in the morning, and then obviously the kids wake up, and it's a rough morning. That's why I've got my smoothie here.
Well, I'm glad I'm hosting, so you can just sit back and have some hot takes, Andrew, about hockey. So I'll try and do as much of the heavy lifting as possible. My weekend was good. Lots of Game 7s we got to see this weekend. We're going to talk about some of them, preview the upcoming rounds. I had a good weekend overall, though. Hung out with my friends. Just enjoying the outside too, even though it's been a little bit cloudy and rainy. Because we're getting into the seasons are starting to get warm, and it feels like spring is ending rapidly and summer is approaching. But yeah, things have been going good here. But like I said, a lot of my weekend was dominated by watching hockey. And the first thing we're going to talk about is, of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs. The last show we talked about how they were basically on the precipice because they had won, what was it, Game 5? What? I don't remember which game. No, yes, Game 5, because the Lightning had won Game 6.
Yeah, they lost Game 6, yeah.
Yeah, so the Maple Leafs had just won Game 5, and Game 6 was going to be that night or the next day. So our episode was kind of out of date, but that's kind of how it is. But that's why we're recording on Monday and publishing this on Monday, so you guys can hear the latest news and season or previews for the upcoming series. But yes, the Maple Leafs lost in the first round again. Game 7 was on Saturday night. They lost 2-1 to the Lightning. I don't want to say I was right here, Andrew, but I did predict the Lightning in 7 games. So I am feeling kind of proud of myself here because this felt like the inevitable result. There was a lot to talk about here from the Maple Leafs standpoint, from the Lightning standpoint, just overall how the series was. It was an incredibly back and forth series. I had watched Steve Dangle's LFR after the fact, and there were some really interesting stats in there, like the entire series all year from the Maple Leafs and the Lightning went back and forth. No team had won 2 games in a row until the Lightning had won Game 6 and Game 7 in the first round. Then, of course, there's also that thing where the Lightning are the first team in the NBA, NHL, and I think MLB to lose 5 straight winner-take-all series in the opening round of the playoffs, or 5 winner-take-all games in the opening round of the playoffs. So the Maple Leafs are cursed. We all knew this. This year kind of felt like it could be different, but it wasn't. The like I said, there's a lot to talk about here. And of course, we're going to talk about the interference call that negated the Tavares goal. But overall, Andrew, before we dive into the specifics, how is this series for you? And, like just in general, how do you view the Maple Leafs after the series? Because this has a different flavor than the previous Maple Leafs disappointments, at least to me. And it feels like overall in the general hockey community, that's kind of the consensus here. Is this feels a little bit different.
I feel like there's a lot of nuance here because remember when we talked about it, Mary, the Leafs, when they started talking about putting like the referees' names in pictures and we were trying to figure out what they were doing and how we couldn't figure out if they were trying to like get their players to respect the referees or if they were kind of trying to show up the referees. And then you had coming to this series, Sheldon Keefe and different players in the Leafs talking about how it was going to be a violent series. Frankly, it wasn't. But it seems like the Leafs put a lot of effort into trying to control the narrative around officiating, and it did not work. They were the 15th most penalized team in the league in the regular season. And in the playoffs, they were the second most penalized team after the Boston Bruins. And the Boston Bruins do play that rough and tumble style. The Leafs don't. There were a lot of calls that the Tampa Bay Lightning got away with that the Maple Leafs did not in this series. I think overall the Leafs were a little bit better in the 7-game series. But even with that, I look at what happened in game 6, what happened in game 7, and the fact that the Leafs allowed the Lightning to score first, I believe the last 4 straight games of the series. They battled back the last 3 to tie it, but couldn't keep control of the game. In game 7, Braden Point goes down with an injury relatively early. There's no excuses. Like, yeah, they played well. They did play well, but, Austin Matthews, 9 points in 7 games, 4 goals in 7 games. It's a fine series. But with the season he had, watching him, I think I watched maybe 50 Leafs games this year. He was an absolute threat all season long when he was on the ice. He was not like that in the playoffs. Like, most of his goals outside of the first game where he was legitimately dangerous, after that, most of his plays were one-off things off the rush where it was Mitch Marner driving play. I don't think Austin Matthews was very good. He was okay. He was better than last year. But with how tired the Tampa Bay Lightning looked in this series, with how bad, frankly, Andrei Vasilevsky was for the entirety of this series, even game 7 where he only allowed 1 goal, he looked awful. He was off of his angles. He was letting rebounds out into all over the place, like bad rebounds all game long. I think the Leafs have run out of excuses. And I know everyone wants to run it back and say like panicking is the wrong move. I agree. You shouldn't panic. But something's got to change here with the philosophy, with the team construction. Because is Matthews going to score 60 next year? He might. Is Mitch Marner going to push 100 points? He might. Are you going to find another Kasha? Are you going to find another Bunting? All these cheap players, like the deal they got for Giordano is incredible. They got Blackwell in there as well. Like all these guys that they're going to lose because they can't afford to keep them because they've got Morgan Riley going to be paid almost double next year. Like they're facing a tougher and tougher cap crunch every year, and they're completely unwilling to change the core. Like John Tavares, I know he had a good game 5 and 6. He was completely invisible for 4 games. Unacceptable for a team captain making almost like $11.5 million a year. Absolutely ridiculous how bad he was in this series to start. So they've got to change something. No panic moves. That goes without saying. You have to find a good deal. It may not be right at the beginning of the summer. It may be halfway through the summer. It might be right before the season. Who knows? But something has to change with this group. Like, for the people who are saying, oh, they lost to the defending Stanley Cup champs, so like it's different than last year. It's not. The Lightning weren't good. I will say, and I'll probably take a lot of heat for this take, but if the Lightning played like that in the Stanley Cup final last year, they lose to the Montreal Canadiens. They played like garbage in that series. For what the Lightning are expected to be, they were not even close to what they were last year. They had nowhere near the offensive dynamic offensive prowess that they had last year. The power play was nowhere near what it was last year. Vasilevsky nowhere near where he was last year. Defensively nowhere near where they were last year. They look exhausted. And how could they not be? I'm not trying to say that they're a bad team. They're still a great team. But they Toronto has no excuses left. They had to win that series. It doesn't matter how good the Lightning are. Like I'm tired of the excuse making from Toronto people now. It's like you got to figure it out. This management group has to figure it out. And I think Kyle Dubas did a great job this year. Everything he did was good, but something's got to change here. And I look at Barry Trotz being available, and I think just because Sheldon Keefe is Dubas's buddy doesn't mean they can't look at that.
Yeah, that's interesting. For me, this series feels a little bit different because they weren't embarrassed, essentially. Sure, they didn't play up to how they should have played, but they weren't like, they're not a laughing stock here. Sure, it's a huge missed opportunity. I know. It's a huge missed opportunity. I'm not giving them an excuse, but at least this series feels a little bit different, when they bowed out to the Montreal Canadiens, who, yes, were really good last year, but it's the Montreal Canadiens. You see how bad they are this year. And they also won the Canadian division last year. And then, of course, previously you had the qualifying round with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yep.
So those two are much more, I guess, embarrassing of like series losses to take. Yes, this is an unacceptable loss. Yes, this is a missed opportunity. But at least, I don't know, that they weren't run out of the building basically in shame here. They tried. It's clear that they tried, but their best wasn't good enough in the series. And they missed a huge opportunity here. Absolutely huge, because you're right. Tampa Bay wasn't playing their best. They do look incredibly tired. They're the team that has played the most games in the NHL over the last handful of years because they have gone on their deep Stanley Cup runs. And who knows if that'll catch up with them in their next series against the Florida Panthers. But the Leafs had their best opportunity here in years, basically, to win, and they weren't able to overcome it. I do think changes need to come. Part of me's like, blow it up because chaos, and I love chaos, and it'd be a fun story, and, it's chaos. I can't root against that, especially because it's not my own team. But then part of me is like, the team that they built was so good in the regular season. They're not going to be able to get the same pieces because you're right. They're in right up against the salary cap. This happens to basically every team that is a competitor and is, spending right up to the cap. You can't bring back the same team unless, people take incredible discounts, and that's just not how the NHL works. You're right, and I think maybe coaching is the thing that they look at. I don't know who they could possibly trade from this team if that was as drastic as I think they were going. I don't know. You're right. Something needs to change because clearly their best is not good enough in the Atlantic Division. And sure, it kind of sucks for the Maple Leafs that they are stuck in a division and a playoff format that doesn't do them any favors, but that's what you roll with. And I think, if the Maple Leafs didn't have to win a Stanley Cup this year. They just had to win a round, basically, and it would have been this season would have been called a success. And you get teams,
the standards aren't high.
Yeah, and I mean the standard, like the I think you said it, the bar is on the ground for this team, and they just refuse to put a foot over it. Basically, no matter how much momentum they have, they just are stopped right before they're able to get to that bar. But you've got teams like the Colorado Avalanche who have in recent years not progressed out of the second round. You've got teams like the Washington Capitals of previous years that were stopped in the second round before before they were able to beat the Penguins. You've got teams like the New York Islanders when they were relevant, stuck in the Eastern Conference Finals, couldn't get over the hump, but at least they won a round. And for the Maple Leafs, they have to win a round to be relevant. I don't remember who said it on Twitter, but they were like, I don't want to hear about the Maple Leafs next year until they actually do something.
Yes.
Regular season success doesn't mean anything.
Don't care about it anymore.
Yeah.
They need to just shut up and do the thing.
I mean, I'm still going to be invested in them because the Maple Leafs is the height of drama. It is.
They're the
It's
main
that.
character.
It's that TikTok that's like, is it me? Am I the drama?
Yep.
That's the Maple Leafs. So of course I'm going to be invested from a drama standpoint, but like, the 82 game season doesn't matter. It's the playoffs that matter, and I don't know. There's a lot of tough decisions ahead here in Toronto. I'm surprised we haven't even touched on the interference call that called that goal back. That I thought you had a really hot take on, Andrew, in Game 7. So I know we kind of like skipped ahead of Game 7, but in that game, Justin Hull interfered with, I don't remember who it was, but negated a John Tavares goal that would have, I believe, tied up the game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I think probably in the second period. I think.
Second period.
Thank you. Sorry. All the games are blending together now. But yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what you have to say because I thought on Twitter you were not a fan of that call. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say. I know we're going back a little bit, but that is one of the big plays of this game. It's not the defining highlight because there were other things, but it is one of the bigger moments. So what do you think of it, Andrew?
Yeah, listen, I understand where people are coming from saying like, oh, it's textbook interference and that gets called every time. But the fact is it doesn't.
Mhm.
And in the context of this game, where you watch the Lightning's first goal and an odd man rush occurs specifically because a Lightning player tackles a Maple Leafs defenseman on the boards near the point, prevents them from holding the zone, prevents them from having the proper amount of men back. And I understand that people are like, oh, well, it created a scoring chance for John Tavares. Kinda. He was already pulling away from Cirelli, and I know Cirelli's a good player, but Tavares had space on him and speed. So, yes, it gave Tavares more space. Maybe Cirelli gets his stick in because he has like a slight angle on him, but I don't think he stops him there. But I think we talk about calling penalties that would create a scoring chance or negate a scoring chance, but an odd man rush has more value than just a regular old scoring chance, even if it's John Tavares. And the fact that blown call on the Lightning and that called call on the Leafs flipped the script essentially 2 goals one way. I understand why Leafs fans were mad. A bunch of people today, because I've been kind of like 2 days later saying a couple things about the Maple Leafs, have been like, oh, well, you were saying that the Leafs lost because of the refs. No, I'm not. I'm saying I understand why the fan base is mad because the consistency is terrible.
Yes.
It's just like the officiating is atrocious. And it wasn't just that game. Like the Lightning absolutely got away with a lot more than the Leafs did in that series. And Lightning fans can be mad or whatever about Matthews having a high hit. I think it was in game 5 or game 6. Doesn't matter. The Lightning got away with way more. Like watch those games with unbiased eyes. I don't care about the Leafs. I don't care about the Lightning. In fact, I like the Lightning more than the Leafs on balance, but they definitely had the benefit of the officials on their side. And I think that comes down to how the Leafs handled things going in, trying to play up control the narrative of the officiating, trying to embarrass them a little bit, talking about officials and putting their names and faces in the dressing room and all that stuff. Like, I don't know what they were thinking, but it wasn't smart.
Yeah, I don't think it was a smart move. I swore I also heard this on the Steve Dangle podcast or a podcast that there were, maybe it was after last year's playoffs where teams or players came together and went to the NHL and was like, please call the rule book. And they were like, you sure? And they were like, yes, please. And I could be butchering this, but I swore I heard on a podcast that the Maple Leafs were one of the teams that were like, please call the rule book. So they got what they wanted.
Yeah. And penalties are way up in these playoffs, which is good.
Yes.
It is good. And I've seen a few people complain. I'm like, no, you shut up. This is what we need.
But I think
it seems like a lot right now, but we need it in order to calm things down.
But I think you're right. The thing is consistency. And that's really, I think, the name of the game here. Like, is that interference penalty a penalty?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. But you just got to call it both ways, I think is essentially how it goes. I enjoyed it for the drama because, like I said, I have no real rooting interest other than the drama. I would have been fine either way in terms of where the series went because it would have been either highly entertaining for the Maple Leafs, celebrations everywhere, all that stuff. And now it's just, sad Maple Leafs fans. And I feel for you. I really do. But it is tremendous content, as they say.
Well, and let's not as much as I feel for Leafs fans, let's not ignore the fact that the team with the longest drought in winning a playoff series happens to be the richest team in the league, bar none. And also one of the cockiest teams about their process, which frankly I believe is good. I do. But it is endlessly funny that the richest team in the league can't get over the hump, no matter how much they invest. It's super funny.
Yes. No. I absolutely agree. I feel bad, but at the same time, it's funny. Like I get it because I too have been part of the cycle of sports misery. Don't worry. I completely understand it. I'm a Philadelphia fan after all. Sure. I've had some moments of happiness, but the cycle of misery continues. Please just, I understand. Not maybe to the extent that Maple Leafs fans have had their heart broken, but I get what it's like to, love a team and it just continues to disappoint you and find ways to break your heart on smaller levels. But I get it. But it is also incredibly funny. And until they win a playoff round, I don't want to hear about, how good they've been. Sure. Players like Austin Matthews have had incredible seasons, absolutely awesome stuff from Matthews, from Bunting, who's in the Calder conversation. Jack Campbell was an all-star. There's just so much their players are so good. They just haven't been able to put it all together. And it is a shame. This is such a huge missed opportunity for them. It'll be absolutely interesting to see what they try and do this offseason because there are questions. There are certainly questions. I could see in their minds being like, we run it back. They played the defending Stanley Cup champions and brought them to the brink and weren't able to get it done, but they were still able to do it. In their minds, I can see them trying to justify that. But at the same time, you've gotten 5 straight years of bowing out in winner-take-all games in the first round. You got to do something. Something has to change. I feel like we said that last year, but the longer this goes on, the worse it looks, honestly. And I don't know. I do not envy the people in Toronto that have to make these decisions. It will absolutely be the number one story to watch, especially with how many high-profile coaches there are. That is a move I can absolutely see. It may change how, the Maple Leafs play as a team, but the talent is still there as long as they can, supplement their depth again with pieces that, work with this core. But I don't think they need to make drastic moves to this core, but I can absolutely see Sheldon Keefe taking the fall for the failures of not just this year, but previous years. So I think that's all we have to say about the Maple Leafs, unless you have anything else you want to add, Andrew. But like I said, this is the top story to watch in the offseason because they are the drama. The Maple Leafs are the drama, and they're awesome to watch from a content perspective because, just thank you for all the content, Toronto. That is, I think, the last thing I'll have to say. Big missed opportunity, but thank you for the content. So coming up next, though, we're going to talk about the second round of the playoffs. They are here. They will be coming on Tuesday, and we will start with the Western Conference. So we will preview those 2 series coming up right after this. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making the Crosscheck NHL show your first listen. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, Andrew. So like I teased up before the break, we are going to dive into the second round because the first round is over. It's been a long 2 weeks, basically, since a lot of the series went to 7 games. I think we were discussing before the podcast, 5 of the 8 went to 7 games. It's been 2 weeks since the first round started. Lots of awesome hockey. I think we're going to touch on some of the other teams that bowed out probably a little bit later down the line, maybe today. But we wanted to get this episode out on Monday so we could preview the series before they start on Tuesday. And we're going to talk about the Western Conference. But first up, I have the Colorado Avalanche versus the St. Louis Blues. The Colorado Avalanche were the first team to advance to the second round. Basically, will have had a week off, essentially, by the time they play, if not like a handful of days more. Versus the Blues, who upset, I want to say, basically the Wild, because I had the Wild winning that series. I don't remember what you had, Andrew, but
I had the Wild.
Yeah, the Wild, I think, kind of disappointed in the end. We talked about it last time that Cam Talbot switch in Game 6 felt strange and maybe should have happened earlier. But overall, it was, the team's lack of scoring, I think, is what did them in. But the Avalanche will be facing the Blues. This is going to be a fun series, I think. But there are real questions for the Avalanche because, like I mentioned previously, they have not really gotten out of the second round ever, at least in their like more modern incarnation of this team. But they have a chance to here, and they have a path. They just have to get through the Blues. What are you looking forward to from the series, Andrew? Because I think this is going to be a good one overall.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one, but I don't think it's going to be a long one.
All right,
I don't
tip in
think
your
that,
hands.
No, the Colorado Avalanche aren't messing around this year. Darcy Kemper seems to be healthy for the second round. Unless something absolutely wild happens, I don't think the Blues are going to manage to squeak this one out. It's just the Blues have been like my number one paper tiger team all season long. They're just punching above their weight all year from the drop of the puck on the first game. And they managed to get through Minnesota because the Wild's special teams are terrible. But that's not the case in Colorado. I think Colorado's just way too deep, way too good. They're just better in every area.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. I mean, Vladimir Tarasenko's had a really awesome playoffs. Believe a point per game player, 5 goals, 6 overall points in 6 games. Just like I said, really, really awesome stuff. Can't believe that, Seattle didn't take a flyer on him when they had the chance to. I mean, who did they get from Seattle? I think it was a really good player, but
Vince Dunn, who's good, but not
yeah,
Vlad
but
Tarasenko
not
good.
Vladimir Tarasenko. No, not at all. So that is, another weird decision in the column of the Seattle Kraken. But yeah, Vladimir Tarasenko had a good series. Like I said, I was surprised at how well the Blues played versus how the Wild played. But this, like I said, this feels like Colorado's just a tier above everybody else in the West. Maybe the only other team that gets closer to them is Calgary, but even they have had struggles. Obviously, they did make it to the second round, but they've had a little bit of a struggle getting there. This should be the Avalanche's series by any conceivable metric, but it's hard not to think of, they've had real bad luck in the second round. But you're right. It seems Darcy Kemper is healthy. Overall, the team is playing really well. They dispatched the Predators in a sweep. So they've had more than enough time to rest. I wouldn't be surprised if they're a little bit rusty in game 1 just because they haven't played playoff game action in basically a week since then. But you're right. I think that this is the Avalanche series to lose because it is probably would take a catastrophic meltdown on their part to be able to lose this with the amount of talent they have. Do you want to put a game prediction, like a number prediction to this, just for posterity? We haven't written it down anywhere, but
I'll say 5.
All right, 5. I'll put it in 6 because I'll just put it in 6. Just to be different, but also it feels like a good middle ground. I think the Blues will put up a little bit of a fight, but overall, the Avalanche will prevail in this series. So, coming up next for the Western Conference is the one we all want to talk about, Andrew.
Yes.
I know we kind of basically shortchanged the Avalanche and the Blues here a little bit.
It's just not as interesting, let's be real.
Yeah, I think probably of all the series that are here, possibly this is the one. Jeez, I'm so sorry. We're recording this in the morning, so we're dealing with it this morning. But of all the series in the second round, this is the one. This is the one that we have waited for. The Calgary Flames didn't let us down, Andrew. We are getting the Battle of Alberta in the second round. Oh, I'm so excited for this. I want it to go 7. I need it to go 7. Because it is going to be awesome. It really is, with fans in the building. This is going to be the series to watch, I think, of the second round. Maybe outside of the Battle of Florida in the Eastern Conference, but I am so excited. We're finally going to get Connor McDavid unleashed. I really hope that, Mike Smith continues to be solid for them and doesn't just, completely collapse when faced against this Calgary offense that has had a little bit of trouble in the offseason. But yeah, I'm really excited for this, Andrew. What do you think?
I think this goes 7, and I'm so here for it. It's going to be, we talked about Sheldon Keefe talking about a violent series. This is going to be a
Yes.
violent series. This is going to be a violent series on the ice and in the stands.
Oh,
There's
my
going to be
God.
some ugly fan videos that come out during this series. Sorry. It is going to be wild. The first time it's happened since 1991.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It is probably the most violent rivalry of that time. I mean, the only one that I can think of that rivals it is the Montreal Canadiens and Quebec Nordiques, which clearly doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But like, this is a rivalry built in the 80s, which, Down Goes Brown, Sean McIndoe affectionately refers to as the cocaine fist era, where it's just two guys high as hell punching each other rapid fire in the face and neither of them falls down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not gonna be that crazy because it's not
No.
the 80s anymore. We're not gonna get bench clearing brawls, but I think we're gonna see some crazy stuff go on. I think that Connor McDavid, you saw in Game 7 against the Kings, he was frustrated and he took that team on his back. But the first thing he did in that game was lay an absolutely brutal hit,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe he took a penalty, like first shift of the game.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna see a more physical and frustrated McDavid than we've ever seen as the Flames try to shut him down and get on him physically. It's going to be incredible.
It is. I
You
mean,
watch Johnny Gaudreau in that Game 7.
mm-hmm.
Oh man,
You've
it's
also
going to be
got Matthew
special.
Tkachuk also there.
Yep.
Like, oh man, like I said, the Flames offense felt a bit stifled against the
It did.
Stars. I mean, good on the Stars for continuing their wild brand of hockey. And of course, obviously, Jake Ottinger, absolute props. What a mad lad for just being incredible, an absolute wall. I feel so bad that, he wasn't able to close it out and, help the Stars. But I think in the end, this is the obviously preferred, matchup for a lot of the hockey community. But
Yeah.
Jake
But
Ottinger,
Ottinger,
man. Oh,
one of the greatest goaltending performances of all time. Not
so
just
good.
in that series as a whole, but in Game 7.
Yes.
That might have been the best Game 7 goaltending performance the NHL's ever seen.
How many shots did the Flames have?
I think 65.
It was a lot. It was so much. Oh man, just it was incredible. I hope he doesn't feel too bad. He gave everything he could out there on the ice, and
67.
67. Oh, man.
Leafs. Sorry.
I hope like I said, I hope he doesn't feel too bad. He gave I mean, of course you're going to feel bad after a loss like that, but he gave everything he could out there on the ice. I mean, this Stars team was basically Joe Pavelski and dragging everyone on his back. You're really putting the work in Game 7 in that series, but in the end, Calgary, was able to prevail. But good on the Stars for continuing their weird, I don't know what it is about the Stars in the playoffs that, because they used to be a team that would score a whole lot and didn't really care about defense. And now, for some reason, feels like the script has completely flipped on this team, and they just lock teams down in the playoffs.
Well, I will say, I don't think they were that great defensively in Game 7.
Yeah.
I think it was just that Ottinger was amazing. Like, at 5-on-5, the Flames had something like almost 6 expected goals in that game.
Yeah, that really shows you how good Ottinger was. But I do expect the Flames offense to to be back in this series, because it seems like the Stars stylistically were just a bad matchup for what they wanted to do. And, obviously some players went a bit cold and whatnot, but this is against the Oilers, and I think we're going to see a real slugfest, or at least I hope it's a real slugfest, because you've got some incredible names, McDavid, Draisaitl on the Oilers, and then you've got, Gaudreau, Kachuk, all of them. Like there's Toffoli, obviously. Like there's a lot of really awesome names. Mangiapane. There's a lot of really awesome names on both sides of this. And I want to say that in the end, it's going to be the Flames that comes out, because on paper they are the stronger team. But it's so hard to tell with this series for me. Like I think it's going to be the Flames because, like I said, on paper they're the stronger team. But the Oilers have kind of surprised me. I mean, sure, the Kings put up a bit of a fight, but the Oilers didn't, crumple. Like they were able to overcome and, win in the first round. So like I said, I hope this series goes long. Do you want to put like a number to this one too? Because I think we both agree that we want it to be 7, but I'm curious to see what team you think is going to come out in the end.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Flames in 7. It's going to be so tight, though.
It is.
It's going to go back and forth, and every game will feel like a different team is going to win this series. It's going to be crazy. I can't wait. But I do think the Flames are just like structurally better. I think the Oilers are a bit looser in the neutral zone, which should allow the Flames attack to kind of come back a bit better than it did. And I can't see Mike Smith putting up anything close to what Jake Ottinger just did.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any way, unless for some reason he was able to regain some of his older form from when, or some of his younger form, basically, from when he was a much younger goaltender. But yeah, this is going to be the series to watch. Like I said, Flames in 7. And yeah, this series is going to be awesome. It's going to take a lot for me to stay awake, just like each night. But I think the series, as soon as it starts, it's going to be like, all right, I'm awake now. So I hope it delivers. So far, I think in these playoffs, these series have delivered. There's been some really top quality hockey, some incredible games, lots of like overtimes, really awesome moments. And I hope that continues in the second round. And this is the series I want it to continue in the most. But we are going to move on to the East after our break, and we will talk about the 2 series there, because there are some surprising teams, some real, also other series that I want to, go long for other reasons. So we'll talk about that coming up right after this. Imagine dipping your finger into that plastic tub of birthday cake frosting, and then opening your eyes and realizing that it was only 150 calories and 16 grams of protein. That's what it is like to eat a birthday cake puff from Built. I just received my birthday cake puffs, and I've never had anything like this before. They're available right now, and we can't promise that they will be there tomorrow, so go get them today at Built.com. And if you haven't tried the puffs, I'll let you in on a little secret, because that's what friends do. A chocolate-covered marshmallow protein bar. Yeah, you heard me. Delicious flavored marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. Make every day your birthday with Built's birthday cake puffs. Built has taken the delicious experience of biting into a fresh slice of birthday cake, enrobed it in 100% white chocolate, and added sprinkles. With 150 calories, 16 grams of protein, and only 9 grams of sugar, this limited time flavor is an amazing option if you're looking for a healthy way to get flavor and variety in your day. All Built bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, that means with Built, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. And they're made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. So go to Built.com to get birthday cake puffs now. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off of your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Andrew. So now we shift from the West to the East. And the first series is the Battle of Florida, which I think complements the Battle of Alberta really well. And it is another series that I want to go 7 because it's the Battle of Florida. We know who the Lightning are. Obviously, they're tired. They look tired. They feel tired. It's clear to see that they're, not the Lightning team that they once were, but they still were able to make it out of the first round and beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. But now, another big test is ahead of them in the Florida Panthers, who also, much like the Flames, had their offense stifled a little bit. And though were able to make it past in the first round and, we're able to make it past the Capitals in the first round and come ahead and, make it to the second round. So there's a lot of parallels here to the Battle of Alberta, which I think is just really cool that we each get that each conference gets their own really awesome series. In this light has like a huge rivalry component. I mean, obviously the Lightning have beat the Panthers before in the playoffs, especially last year where they beat them en route to going to their back-to-back Stanley Cup. They beat them in the first round. So the Panthers here can take some revenge. But I think it all depends on if their offense shows up, much like they were able to do in the end of their series against the Capitals. But the Panthers also had a tendency to go down in that series, and much like their MO throughout the entire season, they had to basically institute a comeback, essentially, had to basically outscore their problems. And that'll be the big question, at least for me, is if they can outscore the Lightning here, who are, still a more structurally sound team. I mean, they're the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. They are the dragon everyone wants to slay. No one's been able to slay yet. Vasilevsky, even though he didn't play particularly well, was still able to keep his streak going of not losing back-to-back games. So there's a lot here. And in my heart of hearts, I want it to be Florida because, my boy Claude Giroux, I want to see him happy. I want to see them win a Stanley Cup, but this one is such a toss-up for me. What do you think, Andrew?
I think that the Florida Panthers outplayed the Lightning last year in round one and kind of lost because the Lightning I think they scored something like 44% on the power play. They don't seem to be doing that this year. Toronto was pretty good on the PK, but I think it was more than that. I just don't think they have the magic touch this year. They still look tired to me. I think Florida, now that they've caught their head of steam a little bit and they've gotten through that first round and maybe have a little bit more belief in themselves, we see more like regular season Florida, and I think they take this in 6.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm leaning to. It's hard for me to bet against Tampa Bay because, sure, they look tired, and sure, they may not have that magic that they've had previously, but it's still Tampa Bay. They have always found a way to win, even in the, slimmest of odds. And, it wasn't always stacked against them in the playoffs, especially with how, they've played. But, this is the cards are really stacked against them. And, they're going to go out fighting, I think, for sure. This is, though, I think, where the Lightning's reign ends. But it has been a great couple of years. I mean, you don't get back-to-back Stanley Cup champions often in this league. It's really hard to do. The playoffs are a grind. The playoffs are a slog, and the Lightning have been an incredible team. But I think this is where it ends for them. But I hope it's a good series. I really do. I hope that just overall Florida is able to keep finding their legs like they did at the end of that series. But it's really going to come down to, I think, the goaltending here. Offense aside, Sergei Bobrovsky, has led in some soft goals. We've all seen it. And Andrei Vasilevsky has not been, the starter we all know him to be. But one of those two has copious amounts of playoff experience and can, turn games in their favor on a dime. So that's where I think the real matchup is to me, is if who lets in the fewest amount of soft goals will win the series, or who's able to deliver the saves in the, moments of high tension and stress, because there's going to be a lot of that in the series, but it is going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to this because it is, a revenge game for Florida. Two really awesome teams. It's going to be awesome. And yeah, it's great. And like I said, I'm glad we have both the Battle of Florida and the Battle of Alberta in the second round. It feels like matchups made in heaven. These playoffs have given me basically everything I've wanted. And now with the Penguins out, I'm not afraid that a team I don't like isn't going to win the Stanley Cup. So we'll move on from the Battle of Florida unless you had anything else you wanted to say on that.
I just think this might be the most the highest quality hockey of any of the second round series. I think it's really fun. I'm excited for Florida fans, like Florida Panthers fans, if they can get through this, because having 2 years in a row of this Battle of Florida, I feel like they're building something in that state for hockey that hasn't ever existed before. The Lightning have had success, but there hasn't really been that much of a rivalry. So this is super fun to me to see new fans able to have their own rivalry that is very unique. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be awesome. Florida is a hockey state now. There's no denying that Florida is a hockey state. It was never in denial, when Tampa Bay won their cups. But this is going to be a real awesome one for the fans, and I'm looking forward to it. But we're going to shift now to the last series in the East, and that is the Carolina Hurricanes versus the New York Rangers. After a game 7, the Rangers prevailed. The Penguins are no more. We'll probably have more to talk on the Penguins in a bit. I don't know if we're going to give them much of a eulogy now, but I think there's a lot to say on this team and their future, but I don't know if that fits currently right now with what we're talking with. But this is going to be a fun series too. The Hurricanes were able to weather the storm, pun intended, if you prefer, of their weird goaltending situation in the playoffs. Do you know if Frederik Andersen is going to be back, Andrew?
I haven't seen any updates. Last I saw, he wasn't even skating yet.
But
I don't
they
think it
have,
matters because Antti
yeah.
Raanta has been so good.
Yeah, Antti Raanta has been incredible, but that was a big question for me coming into these playoffs because they had a huge goaltending scare coming in. But Antti Raanta has been really good versus the New York Rangers, who were able to gut out a really impressive Game 7 victory against the Penguins. And Igor Shesterkin has not looked like the Vezina-winning goaltender we thought he was going to be. But of course, it's the playoffs; it's a different animal completely. But this is going to be a really interesting series from that perspective. I think that the Hurricanes are just too good of a team overall. They're sure, they showed some cracks against the Bruins, but the Bruins always go out with the fight. They're tough out regardless. But this Hurricanes team is just so deep, so defensively sound. I don't think the Rangers are going to be able to play the game that they want to play against this Hurricanes team because they're just so suffocating and can, turn things on a dime for them and then go up the ice and score. And if Shesterkin is still as vulnerable as he was in that Penguin series, I have this going for the Hurricanes. There is obviously a world in which the Rangers, I think, win here. But this is a much higher step up from the Penguins. And even like we thought, or at least I thought, that the Rangers would, deal with the Penguins easily or like more easily than they did. And they didn't. The Penguins put up a big fight in the end, and the Rangers looked weaker than I thought. So for me, I have the Hurricanes in 6. I could see even 5, but 6 feels like the good number for me because I want these series to go long because they're fun and it's going to be a good time. But what do you think, Andrew, here?
I think it's going to be Hurricanes in 5. I have very little respect for the New York Rangers. The only reason they weren't done in 5 against the Penguins is because Trouba injured Crosby. They did not have, they were not impressive to me. The Penguins absolutely dominated them by every possible metric, and the Rangers got extraordinarily lucky that the Penguins had to rely on their third string goaltender for most of the series, and Crosby was out.
Yeah.
You can't. How often are you gonna knock out your opponent's first 2 goaltenders and their top line center? Who, by the way, happens to be ripping you to shreds through 5 games. And I still can't believe that play wasn't suspended, honestly.
Yeah, it's a real shame that it went down the way it did. It should have been a suspension. Crosby's lost so much time to concussion, even though they said he didn't have one. There's a whole lot of I guess, confusion about that because, it seemed like he had one, but then he was tested again and he didn't, so he was able to go for Game 7. But yeah, losing Crosby in that way, even if it wasn't a concussion, it's still a shame because he's lost so much time to head injuries over the years, and he was absolutely incredible during these playoffs. And it's a shame we're not going to watch him anymore in these playoffs. Who knows what's next for the core of that team? Like I said, I think that's probably a discussion for a little bit down the line in either in the playoffs or in the offseason. But the Penguins got dealt a hand that they didn't deserve, I think, here. They deserve to win that series. If they had Tristan Jarry in net for the entire series, it rightfully would have been theirs. Louis Domingue had his heroic moment, but just, let in more goals than he should have, which, of course, he's going to. He's their third string goaltender.
Yep.
I don't place the blame on this series squarely on his shoulders because he did his best. It was just, the Penguins were dealt a bad hand here, and is probably stings if you're a Penguins fan, but the Rangers have to feel ecstatic about, getting through that series. But like I said, they've got a long road ahead of them, and I don't think they're going to be able to, gut it out against the Hurricanes. But it seems like though we are in alignment with the teams we have picked here, Andrew. We both picked the Avalanche, the Flames, the Panthers, and the Hurricanes.
Yep.
Yeah,
We're picking all favorites this round.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It seems like some of the favorites are just a little bit above the others, but like series like the Battle of Alberta and the Battle of Florida, I think could possibly go either way. A lot of the favorites won out in the end of the day, but it was close in the first round. There were 5 game sevens. That's as close as you get. So really looking forward to the second round. Anything else you want to say, Andrew, before we move on from the playoffs into our pop culture segment?
Nope, I think we're good.
All right, awesome. Like I said, looking forward to the second round. It's going to be awesome. Sadly, we're out of the first round. That means no more 4 games a night. So it'll be a little less chaotic, but the first round is always the best. So big salutes to the first round for being really awesome this year and looking forward to the second round. But coming up, we're going to finish off the episode with our pop culture segment, and that'll be coming up right after this. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. RockAuto.com is a family business, serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. The RockAuto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brands, specifications, and prices you prefer. Best of all, prices at RockAuto.com are always reliably low and the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Why spend up to twice as much for the same parts? Go to RockAuto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in there. How did you hear about us box so that they know we sent you? Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. All right, Andrew, it's our final segment of the show, our pop culture segment. I know I said last week that I was going to watch Rent with my friends. I didn't because it was we were going to hang out the night, the game 7 of the Maple Leafs Lightning series. And I told them I can hang out on voice chat, but I cannot watch a movie because I will be paying too much attention to hockey. So that got moved to next week. I will say the one bit of pop culture I have been consuming recently with my friends is an anime called Spy Family, which is just a really cool comedy anime about like a war-torn country basically, and a spy the spy guy is for one of the countries, and he's basically sent to basically try and stop a bigger war from happening essentially, and his mission is to infiltrate a school with a daughter basically, and try and stop it before it happens, because the link to get into this guy's family is through like his son, who goes to this prestigious school. So basically this spy has to adopt a daughter who is telepathic, so she knows he's a spy, and then he has to get fake married to a woman who ends up being an assassin. But they don't know that they are a spy and an assassin, but the daughter does because she's telepathic. So it is an incredible anime. I've been watching it recently with my friends. Just really lighthearted, funny. Just definitely different than anything I've ever watched in terms of anime, because I don't watch a whole ton. But I've been really enjoying it a lot. Highly recommend. It's still ongoing, so it's like a weekly thing. But I've been enjoying that recently because it's just a really nice, light comedy half hour. And I mean, sure, there's some action and stuff like that, but it's great to see them like tiptoe around each other of like, why can this lady suddenly like, drop kick somebody who stole her groceries? I don't know. He's just like, oh, I don't know how you can do that. It's very funny. It is incredible comedy. It's so good. I highly recommend that. But what do you have, Andrew, for us in our pop culture segment?
Not much. We were outside most of the weekend because it was 35 degrees here, which I guess in American measurements is like high 90s.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It was quite nice outside. We got the kids outside, made sure they didn't burn. Lots of sunscreen. But I did, while Miles was napping yesterday, watch Empire Strikes Back for the first time with Dylan.
Okay.
He watched A New Hope last weekend, and he was just enthralled. And it was super fun. He's gotten super into it. He's obsessed with Luke. And I was talking about it yesterday on Twitter that he doesn't even realize that 2 years ago, when he got his first lightsaber toy, because we were watching the Clone Wars and he wanted a lightsaber and his grandfather got him one, I took a video of that and just posted it online, and Mark Hamill replied to it.
Wow.
So one day when he's old enough to understand the significance that he loves Luke Skywalker, and Luke himself commented that he was happy to see this junior Jedi get his first lightsaber, I think that's going to be a very cool moment.
Oh, that's so awesome. Mark Hamill's such a good dude, it seems
He's
like.
the best. He
Yeah,
gets it.
he
Gets
does.
it.
He does. That's so awesome though, so wholesome. I mean, I don't really remember growing up when I've, first watched Star Wars, but obviously made a big enough imprint on me. My mom was a huge Star Wars fan, so I'm sure she showed them to me when I was younger, probably in a similar way. I grew up, watching the prequels, had like a Anakin Skywalker pillow growing up. So, we've all been there. Our fandom all starts somewhere. That's really sweet. Awesome that, he's taken to it, and that Luke's his favorite, because why wouldn't he be his favorite? Luke is the best. I know a lot of people, gravitate to, Han Solo and whatnot, but Luke is the best. He's the protagonist for a reason. A good dude, goes to some great character development. But yeah, that's really awesome. And I look forward to, hearing how, he does with the final installment of the trilogy whenever you get around to that. But I'm looking forward to hearing about his reaction. So that, though, is all we have for you on the Crosscheck NHL show. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you follow us on your podcast platform of choice, from Apple to Odyssey to Spotify and YouTube, and rate and review us while you're at it. You can follow the pod at Crosscheck NHL on Twitter, me at Mary C. Clarke on Twitter, and Andrew at Andrew Berkshire on Twitter. Thank you for making the Crosscheck NHL show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. We'll be back on Friday with some more puck talk, but now make your second listen Locked On to NHL. From first-round matchups to each Stanley Cup kiss, Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. Hear the latest news and opinions from local experts every Monday through Friday. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts.